Well, I spent all summer, 70 hours of content building up my power rankings through my deep dive series. And now that week one is in the books, it's time to wipe it all clean and start anew. Not really, though. I mean, jokes aside, week one is actually really fun. We have all these preconceived notions of what these teams are going to look like this year. And then we have to parse through just a one-game sample size and try to decide kind of what matters, what doesn't matter, where are our red flags, where are our green lights showing. Week one is always, to me, one of the more fun power rankings episodes of the season, but also one of the more controversial as well. Some people want those fast, sweeping conclusions. Others might lean more towards those preseason narratives. But let's have some fun today. And yeah, talk about what I think matters and what maybe I think we need to see a little bit more of before we overreact to from week one. As we get started though, please do hit that like button. It really does help me out and this channel out. And make sure you subscribe as well so you don't miss any of my regular season content here. Weekly power rankings, positional tier makers, plenty of other good stuff as well. But here we go. Starting at the very bottom of the rankings with my number 32 team in the bottom tier, which I categorize as booty until proven otherwise. The New Orleans Saints are going to keep that 32 spot. They were not the worst team in week one. That will be our next team here. But I do think the concerns of what this offense is going to look like and go through this season and the lack of star talent on defense. I mean, Demario Davis did everything he could to keep this game close against the Cardinals, and they almost did pull it out in the end, but these aren't just a reflection of what happened last week. This is as we project these teams forward now into week two. And I do still have the Saints as the worst team in the league, though this number 31 team might be pushing for that last spot very quickly if they show a repeat of what we saw last week. I think you can guess who that's going to be. It's the Miami Dolphins. The vibes were bad all summer. This culture seems to have been spiraling. Tyreek Hill is washed up and now getting into more off the field drama. But Tua Tagovailoa comes out and looks horrible, throwing the ball straight into the teeth of the defense. Tua turned the ball over, is back. The Dolphins are drowning in his contract. Mike McDaniel just can't quite get that play calling magic back that he had early. And this all came against a team in the Indianapolis Colts that we'll have some praise for later on. But the only other team coming out of the offseason with less hype might have been the Indianapolis Colts, and they got smoked. So a -7 position drop for the Miami Dolphins, who might just be a few weeks like this removed from us starting to wonder which quarterback they're going to take with their very high first-round pick this year. Then at the number 30 spot, the Tennessee Titans, getting a +1 by the nature of not looking as bad as the Dolphins. I think this kind of looked like we expected for the Titans, where they are going to be figuring things out. The offense just didn't really seem to have too much of a plan to me. Cam Ward was in trouble out there. The Dan Moore signing looked about as bad as you could possibly imagine. The defense was feisty and kind of kept them alive. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we broke this team down when I had them ranked 31 in our deep dive. So they jump out to an 0-1 start. Just one of these teams that you hope as the season goes on, they can kind of figure out what works for them and get better as the year goes on. But not a great go of it. Then at number 29, the New York Giants falling down 3 spots. Tough task for this defense going against Jaden Daniels, who continued to look phenomenal to start his second season. But yeah, at this point, I can't really defend Brian Daboll until we see something. I've always liked Brian Daboll. I thought what he did in that first year with the Giants was a miraculous coaching effort, but him and this offense's inability to just figure anything out is eye-opening. I don't know how you could have any confidence in this offense until we see something. But then we have the Carolina Panthers at number 28. As much as I love this team, having them ranked number 28 heading into the season certainly is feeling about right at this point in time. Now, there's going to be a lot of panic about Bryce Young. He certainly did not play well, but there were a lot of drops. They clearly missed Ikem Ekwonu at left tackle there. Josh Hines-Allen ate up their backup left tackle. And the defense really struggled to get off the field, man. Outside of some missed throws from Trevor Lawrence, you saw a continuation of last year's defense. So there's just a lot of issues with this Panthers team right now that they're going to have to continue figuring out if they want to climb out of this bottom tier of football teams and start to capture some of that fun hype that they had heading into the year. I don't think it's impossible, but they got to get to work, man. But that is going to finish my bottom tier in these rankings. We're going to climb up to our next group, which are the teams looking like a tough out, in my opinion. So let's go start with the New England Patriots at number 27. They obviously, like a lot of roster turnover, new coaching staff. They, like some of these other teams we've talked about, Tennessee, Carolina, they're going to be figuring themselves out in many ways as the season goes on. But we saw that scrappy defense. Harold Landry, gotta give him a tip of the cap, played much better in his first game as a Patriot. That was a signing that I dunked on. I didn't think he had any juice left in the tank, but he had a great first outing. Let's see if he can keep that up. I don't think Drake May looked horrible in his debut. They just need to find a way to finish drives. So they hang around against a Raiders team that I thought, came ready to play. Not trying to gas this team up too much, but they felt a little bit more potent as a football team than our previous 5 teams, hence why we're starting this tier here. Then the Cleveland Browns at number 26. Now, I know they went against the Week 1 Bengals, which are a laughingstock, if you ask any of the last 3 calendar years. But by the eye test, this defense looks like it might be back to that 2023 form. You remember that incredible 2023 Browns defense with Myles Garrett just wrecking fools up front, that secondary playing so much better. They got much better play from their secondary here than we saw certainly last year. So with that, plus an offensive game plan that really is just asking Joe Flacco to take stuff underneath, run the football, take care of the football, it's a formula to keep them in a lot of games, hence them looking like a tough out. But then at the same time, Brown's gonna Brown, right? You can't blow that game in any more of a Cleveland Browns style fashion with the missed field goal and then not just 1 but 2 interceptions bouncing off the hands of their receivers getting intercepted. But some flukiness in there that otherwise the Browns were the better team than the Bengals, at least on Sunday. So a +4 for Cleveland. And then the New York Jets at number 25. Look, I'll say the thing that every Jets fan wants me to say. Justin Fields looked like a new man. He looked awesome. I think for me, it was the way that he was navigating pressure while keeping his eyes downfield, looking to pass. His pocket presence, or lack thereof, has been his number 1 or number 2 biggest detractor from his game. And he looked comfortable and like that had improved in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the other issue for him has been processing and decision-making, where I thought he at least looked like he was in control of this Jets offense and avoided mistakes and did a pretty good job surveying the field. He just looked awesome. If this is who Justin Fields is now, I'm going to have to change my stance on him as a quarterback. Now, on the flip side, this Jets defense was a complete mess. Aaron Glenn is going to have to do the job that we see from a lot of, kind of new defensive coordinators coming to a new team and go from some struggles early on to making adjustments and cleaning things up. But certainly underperformed their roster talent on that side of the ball. So some good and some bad, but they find themselves here with the 25 spot climbing 4 spots in these power rankings. But that will conclude that second to last tier. We will now go into my largest tier today, which is tier 5. We have 7 tiers in today's video. Before we do that, though, I want to thank the sponsor for today's video, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog's Pick'em contests are the best way to enjoy your Sundays or isolated matchups on Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, you name it, and a great chance to compete to win big payouts. Just select higher or lower on any number of player stats. Find the matchups you prefer that week, hit on your picks, and you will get massive cash payouts. They've got other fun ways to play as well. You can play streaks where you're building up picks for just ridiculously large cash payout opportunities. Weekly best ball drafts if your home leagues are already looking like a bust and you want to go in and do a new draft for the new season. You can go do that right now. Get a new team. Follow that one through the rest of the season. They've still got baseball and countless other sports up there on Underdog as well. So if you sign up right now using code TFG, they will give you a bonus match and you will support my channel in the process. So good luck on Underdog, and that is code TFG when you sign up. So this next tier I called the soul-searching tier, teams that may have won or lost, but, aren't definitive playoff caliber teams, teams that could get worse as the season goes on, teams that could certainly show some notable improvements, basically teams that I'm inconclusive on and need to see more. So that begins with the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 24. This team showed some good and some bad. While the Panthers are going to get a lot of flack for playing bad, I did think the Jags defense just straight up showed up. Like, Josh Hines-Allen looked incredible. Foye Oluokun had a phenomenal game at linebacker. The signing of Eric Murray looks like a steal in free agency for the Jags, kind of out of nowhere. Aaron Campanelli had this defense cooking. It's been a while since we've watched a Jags game and felt like the defense was taking over. So they really impressed on that side of the ball. Meanwhile, offensively, if Liam Cohen is going to come in and save Trevor Lawrence from some of his biggest issues, most notably being accuracy, well, it didn't happen overnight. We'll see if they can continue to, figure things out offensively. But I really wasn't moved by the Jags offense, especially against a Panthers defense that gave them a lot more opportunities to score more than they did. I also think it's just worth noting, like, anytime we get these hour-long weather delays, we saw this from Thursday Night Football and this game, like, neither of these games really felt normal coming back from that. So some weirdness going on there as well. But the Jags did impress me. They climb up a spot in these power rankings, and if the defense continues to play like this, they're going to have to earn some more respect here. But then I have the Atlanta Falcons at number 23, dropping down just one spot in my rankings. This is just the definition of a team I need to see more of. Like, we're still learning what Michael Penix fully is, but I think he continues to just look like a good NFL quarterback with a ridiculously strong arm. I liked how he was using his legs more here. The Falcons defense was competitive against the Bucs, but that was against a Bucs team that didn't have Tristan Wirfs or Chris Godwin. Certainly not a defense that I trust to be outstanding this season. So I would just say losing a spot in the rankings because there's another team that's jumping them here that impressed me more. But my stance on kind of where I was at on the Falcons coming into the year is about the same here. And we'll continue to evaluate them just as much as the Seattle Seahawks. Two teams, I think, very tightly knit in terms of that narrative right there. But this also looked a lot like I expected. The defense looked awesome. Year two of this Mike Macdonald defense has a chance to be special, and the defense really alone gave them a chance against this Niners team. But offensively, they certainly showed some struggles. Like, Sam Darnold wasn't horrible, but him in this passing game weren't amazing. It was Jackson Smith and Jigba impressing and getting a million targets all over the field. And then kind of question marks everywhere else with this offense. So they're not a bad team, far from it. They're a team that I think had a lot of offensive turnover with a new coordinator that's going to have to become more consistent on that side of the ball, which is how I felt about Seattle coming into the year. That led to them ranking here in the high 20s, and that's where they're at right now until we see a little bit more from this squad. Then the Chicago Bears at number 21. Ooh-wee, what a roller coaster night for Chicago. The first quarter with this offense was like everything you could imagine. Caleb came out. He was sharp. He was wheeling and dealing from the pocket. And then really for the first half, this Dennis Allen defense looked like that brilliant hire that myself and many praised that defensive coordinator hiring on that side of the ball. They were dominating a Vikings team that I think most of us think pretty highly of, and things were looking great. And then just a horrific second half collapse. They end up with negative offensive yards in the fourth quarter, and Caleb Williams goes directly back to the primary issues from him in his rookie season, which is a simple one: accuracy. This dude, now that Anthony Richardson isn't starting, is the most inaccurate quarterback in the NFL starting. And I don't know how you could argue otherwise. And when you've got Ben Johnson dialing up open wide receivers and Caleb's either not seeing them, or when he does see them, he's overthrowing it, that you can't move the ball that way. So they get a -5 for me this week. And they might be the hardest team to know what to do with coming out of week 1, because you did see some good, but then you saw a whole lot of bad. And like, if what we saw in the second half there is who the Bears are moving forward, they're going to be a bottom 5 to 8 team in the league this year. But it was the first game with Ben Johnson here. It is a Brian Flores defense that can put a lot of different quarterbacks into a blender. So I don't want to just say, well, that's it, the season's over, when this team did have a lot of reasonable expectations heading into the year. But yeah, Chicago gets a -5 and certainly not trending towards turning that around until we see it. Then I have the Dallas Cowboys at number 20. And obviously you'd like to see them come away with the win there Thursday night against Philadelphia on a night where I honestly felt like they were the better team once Jalen Carter got ejected from that game, especially. It was really just back-breaking mistakes from 2 players in the biggest of spots, being the fumble from Miles Sanders right before the lightning delay. Very few things you can do worse than fumbling inside your opponent's 10-yard line when you're about to take the lead heading into the fourth quarter. And then, yeah, the CeeDee Lamb drops were just brutal. So I'm not trying to sell Dallas as this great team or anything like that, but they clearly were like a competitive, good-looking football team against the defending Super Bowl champs in their own territory. And they are dropping down a spot in these power rankings, but I do think Dak looked very sharp. And the defense, while they didn't have the pass rush that you have become accustomed to with Micah Parsons out there, they were at least a more balanced defense that could actually stop the run. I thought Kenny Clark showed up a bunch of times in that game. So I don't think Dallas stinks. I can't defend them for trading away Micah Parsons, and we saw what that did for Green Bay. But I think the narrative on Dallas is probably, oh my God, doom and gloom. This team is, going to be picking top 5. And I'm just like, I don't know. I watched them play. Dak reminded us he's a very good quarterback, and he's only going to get a better chemistry with Pickens as the year goes on as well. CeeDee Lamb's not going to have 4 drops every single week. I think 20 feels about right for Dallas right now. Then I have the Arizona Cardinals at number 19, but dropping down 2 spots. I don't have too much to say other than I expected more from this offense against a Saints Brandon Staley-led defense. Now, it was a road opener. Never easy to go on the road and win week 1 when fans, especially in the Superdome, are going to be fired up. I think the Cardinals defense did their thing, but I think a lot of defenses are going to do their thing against the Saints this year. So I need to see more from this defense before I see this as a unit that's going to be holding opposing offenses, into the teens every single week, as they did with New Orleans, barely. It took a end of game kind of red zone stand to walk out of this game with a touchdown victory. But this offense it continues to feel kind of like bottled up, which if they're going to be a great defensive team that can work, kind of playing a little bit more dink and dunk, running the football, playing great defense, is that going to hold up against non-New Orleans Saints football teams? I don't think so. I think they need to see more of a cohesive plan and explosiveness from Kyler Murray in this passing game, which I'm still cautiously optimistic that they can achieve, but we just haven't seen it yet. But I do have them getting passed up by the Las Vegas Raiders here, who jump up to the number 18 spot. And God, I feel like I can take a little bit of credit for kind of going against the grain. A lot of people were surprised when I originally had the Raiders ranked, I think, 20th in my power rankings series. Sadly, I probably did overcorrect when Christian Wilkins left the squad. I lowered them all the way down to 23, which was still a respectable ranking for the Raiders. But a lot of what I said about this team held up, where I feel like this defense is going to be really underratedly frisky with Max Crosby wrecking things and a Pete Carroll coach coming in to kind of, I would say, bring the culture stuff on top of now what Patrick Graham has accomplished on that side of the ball defensively, and getting Jamal Adams in there. He was flying around as this kind of linebacker hybrid player, similar to what Patrick Graham did with someone like Jabril Peppers back in his good days with those Giants defenses going a few years back. Good defensive play from the Raiders here. Also, Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson gets a sack. Hey, even Thomas Booker, that I didn't see too much from him when they traded Jacorian Bennett for him, but he had a really good day. 5 pressures in this one against that Patriots offensive line. they've just found some underrated dudes. And then offensively as well. Like, I don't understand why people acted like Geno Smith was some just nothing burger addition for the Raiders, as if this was them signing Gardner Minshew all over again. Like, no, Geno's been really good in Seattle the last couple of years with garbage offensive lines. He was awesome this week against the Patriots, distributing the ball. And we saw good play in this game, not just from Brock Bowers and Jakobi Meyers, the two core, like, known playmakers here, but Michael Mayer, an early comeback here. Jack Bech had an awesome 23-yard reception on his one target. But Trey Tucker and Deontay Thornton as well showing up with more of a vertical presence with Geno pushing the ball downfield. The Raiders are a good, balanced, tough football team. Do they necessarily have the ceiling to be this incredible playoff contender? You know, they beat the Patriots week 1. We'll continue to evaluate that, but this is definitely a fun team to watch this year, in my opinion. And then the Indianapolis Colts at number 17. I think them and the Raiders, what they did week 1 was an early victory lap for me. There's obviously a lot of football left. But the Colts especially, I was like, look, guys, like, I understand the upside of Anthony Richardson. I'm as excited for it as anybody out there. But them going to Daniel Jones is not this, like, egregious decision and this indefensible decision. Like, I understood it, man. Like, he can play point guard. They've got playmakers. I was really excited to see what this Colts defense was going to look like here with Lou Anarumo and an improved secondary, and they were awesome, man. They dominate the Indianapolis Colts. The run game was cooking. Michael Pittman looks healthy. Tyler Warren looks like an awesome addition here. Like, they got a lot to work with here, man. I got a lot of heat back in July before training camp ever started that I said, look, I think Daniel Jones wins this job and the Colts are going to be pretty solid this year. At least after week 1, that feels like the direction we're headed with this team. But then we'll go into our next tier here. So this is tier 4, and this is a unique one. This tier is called Steelers. Literally just the Pittsburgh Steelers find themselves in this tier. Soul searching didn't feel right for the Steelers, but our next tier didn't feel right for them either. And this also is exactly the number 16 spot. So I don't know that this tier will survive another week here, but at least as we sit here right now, I did kind of think they found themselves in their own little bubble in the NFL right now. Fun week 1 for Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers looked great. The arm looked sharp. Looks like he's coming out like ready to run Arthur Smith's offense. So much narrative about, is he going to allow Arthur Smith to call plays and stuff? And he kind of puts that to bed in his post-game presser celebration. He's like, look, Arthur and I are tight. We got this thing figured out. Like, you can relax about that end. And at least from that regard, in terms of he's going to come out, do the play action thing, let Arthur call the plays. And look, Arthur Smith, he gets a lot of heat for some of his player usage stuff. And look, he did it again this week with Caleb Johnson getting 1 touch. I don't understand that. But you can't deny the guy understands play action passing game and can scheme guys open with the right quarterback. So it does seem that this is going to be much closer to those late stage Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers days where Rodgers was willing to take a little bit more of a back seat with the play calling stuff, unlike New York where it was like literally just his offense and it was a disaster. So I think that's a huge evolution or progression from the 2024 version of Aaron Rodgers. The interesting thing about the Steelers, though, and why I don't really know what to do with them is what the hell was going on with that defense. They got ran all over against the Jets. The pass rush struggled. TJ Watt, who got the big contract extension, has just 1 pressure this week, going mostly against rookie Armin Membu. There's a little bit of PTSD going on with me with last year's Jets, where it was like, look, the idea is Aaron Rodgers just has to be okay because this defense should be elite. Well, they sure as hell were not elite defensively against the Jets this week. So they can't be counting on Aaron Rodgers to put up 30-plus points and for them to, force a clutch, fumble on a kickoff late in the game to swing this game back in their favor. They can't be counting on that every week. At the end of the day, they easily could have lost this game to the New York Jets. So it's another one of these teams where there was some good, some bad, and we need to kind of see where this goes. But yeah, right now, the Steelers kind of find themselves smack dab in the middle of the league in their own little bubble. But then we'll go to my tier 3, which to me are playoff caliber teams, but all teams that have some more warts to them than our more top tiers here in these rankings. But at number 15, the Cincinnati Bengals. are going to stay put in this number 15 spot. They survive bungling it in week 1, as they love to do, but I don't know by how much of their own accord that was thanks to, because the Browns just missed a field goal and just got plain bad luck popping balls up into the air for clutch interceptions for the Bengals. It was really more of the same, where Joe Burrow and this offense just came out and couldn't move the ball. Now, I'm not panicking about that. This was against a Browns defense that has a lot of pieces that we've seen play at an elite level as early as just a year ago. And how many times do we need to see the Bengals suck in week 1 just to turn things around pretty quickly for us to know that that's just what this team is all about, apparently. So I'm certainly not panicking, hence why their rating is staying put. Obviously, their defense looked better under Al Golden, but it was against Joe Flacco and the Browns. So obviously, you need to see more before I say the Bengals defense is back to any regard. So I would say it feels about right, with the Bengals escaping with a week 1 victory, staying in the same ranking as we had them heading into the year. Then we have the Houston Texans at number 14. They're going to lose 2 spots here. This is more about a couple other teams impressing me more. I certainly thought Houston was going to be in for a tough matchup against the Rams defensive line that runs as many twists and stunts as anybody in the league, and that was the Texans' big issue last year. Now with a completely new look week 1 offensive line here, it was a tough draw for the Texans. I do think the Texans defense looks like it could be one of the best in the league. I think CJ Stroud did everything he could in this game, considering he was running for his life all week. The narrative on the Texans is quite simple for me. It is, can they just straighten out their protection enough so that Stroud doesn't get murdered every week, lean into the idea that they have one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL, and just settle down and start winning football games. Again, I don't think this was a favorable matchup, having to go and play the Rams in their house. Week 2 and beyond, though, we're going to have to definitely focus on that specific thing, being the offensive line. Then I have the Minnesota Vikings dropping 2 spots in the power rankings, despite the comeback victory. Just like the Texans, I think this is much more about a couple other teams impressing me more. I don't know that my opinion on the Vikings has changed all that much, where I figured the defense under Brian Flores was going to be awesome, and they certainly locked in and played great. And the whole J.J. McCarthy thing, it's just very much wait and see. Now, I will admit, Vikings fans, I regret even bringing up his struggles at halftime in a tweet. I should have been more patient than that. So there's my apologies on that. I love how McCarthy settled in, all that poise we talk about with him, the idea that the moment's never going to be too big for him. Having played and won a national championship at Michigan, that all absolutely showed up. But we obviously saw some good and some bad in this game from J.J. McCarthy. Couple of big throws to drive this team back into the game, but he dug them in a hole early as well with that really bad pick 6 early on, and he felt really uncomfortable out the gate, pushing the ball downfield and doing more than underneath throws, which was also a criticism of him coming out of that Michigan offense, where it's all right, can he really expand the field and push the ball downfield and be the driver of a passing game? We have so much still to learn about what J.J. McCarthy is going to be. But as we saw in the second half of this game, I would say McCarthy played as a good quarterback in the second half of the game. And as long as that's going to be the case, this Vikings team is going to be able to win a lot of football games. So they get a -2 because, as we'll see later, there was a couple teams that just impressed me more. But overall, the Vikings find themselves right around that same spot as we had them heading in. And then the Denver Broncos at number 12. Again, sensing a theme here, getting a -2 because a couple other teams impressed me more. But I will say with the Broncos, as far as them dropping down a couple spots, what the hell was that from Bo Nix? 4 turnover-worthy plays, looked really bad in his debut. Now, that was the case in week 1 last year, so maybe Bo Nix is just another Joe Burrow in the sense of he's going to suck in week 1. Certainly not writing off Bo Nix, but got to get some things straightened out. This Broncos offense you hoped was going to be improved here in 2025. So they got to show that they're on the right track there and not what happened week 1 against a Titans team that isn't that potent. But that Broncos defense was as advertised. So they get away with a kind of an ugly week 1 victory, and now they can go back to the drawing board and show us what they got here week 2. San Francisco 49ers, likewise, falling down 2 spots here. Defense looked great. The Robert Saleh return was epic. Getting that win in Seattle, really on the grounds of their defense. Nick Bosa putting the game away as the elite pass rusher he is. That's a play of the year candidate, man. Like, that is going to be on my short list at the end of the season. Games on the line. Nick Bosa drives a newly paid Abraham Lucas into Sam Darnold with his bull rush, so much so that he forces a fumble with the offensive tackle that he just drove off his ass, and then ends up in position to recover the fumble and calls game. Like, unbelievable Mariano Rivera-esque close from Nick Bosa there. But yeah, the offense clearly is sorting through stuff, and Purdy cannot be throwing 2 interceptions every week if this team is going to expect to win. Hopefully it's just week 1 jitters, but those are the types of interceptions that Brock Purdy is prone to. Those kind of intermediate throws that are either overthrows or he didn't see a linebacker dropping. Now, McDonald does some good stuff to cause confusion and put pressure on him in that area. So it was a good Seahawks defense in Seattle. I don't want to overreact to it, but yeah, Purdy had some ugly moments in this game for sure. But the Niners did enough. Don't love the George Kittle injury. They're going to have to stomach that again on top of already not having Ayuk out there. At least Ricky Pearsall looks excellent. They have at least somebody down the field to get the football to. I still think the Niners are slightly underrated based on the public narrative on them that is overwhelmingly negative right now, but they clearly are not through the woods as this like excellent Super Bowl contender either. And then number 10, the Tampa Bay Bucks. This might end up being kind of a placeholder ranking until they can get Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin back, but clearly not a dominant outing against Atlanta. I love the big plays they got from Igbuka. This isn't about him. He obviously looks incredible. But something just wasn't quite right with this team, whether it was a little bit of a lack of the run game or having the confidence in this offense with, 2 of their 3 best players, I would say, with Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin out in this game. So, like, they escaped this game. I think the defense as well was mostly as advertised. They gave up the huge play to Bijan Robinson early on a check down, and then mostly settled in after that. Shout out Antoine Winfield, probably the most clutch safety in the league. It feels like his ability to make that big play late in the game when they need it most, down by the red zone, it's like multiple times a year. That was the same this week. He had an epic pass breakup on that potential game-tying drive where he breaks up a pass that would have set up that field goal that the Falcons ended up missing. It would have been a chip shot had Antoine Winfield not made that play. So competitive game to escape with a win there in a big divisional game at Atlanta. But I do think this team, with a tough schedule here in these next few weeks before they get those superstar players on offense back, is going to be in for some tough contests and aren't quite the best version of themselves quite yet. Putting them in this tier felt more accurate from what we saw from the Week 1 Bucks for now. Then at number 9, the Detroit Lions getting a -6 this week, one of the biggest fallers of the week. Now, maybe this will prove that Green Bay just is that good and having to go to Lambeau week 1 was just a bad draw for Detroit. And they're not fully healthy either, right? Like, Ali McNeil is hopefully going to come back and help this defense get a little bit more of a pass rush in future weeks. But that's going to be at least another 3 weeks, as he did start the season on the PUP list. But honestly, it's not so much the Lions defense I'm worried about. It's all of the change-up on offense. Losing Ben Johnson, but maybe even more importantly, what this interior of the offensive line looked like. Christian Mahogany at left guard struggled in pass protection, as did the rookie Tate Ratledge. Graham Glasgow was unspectacular. You pair that with a couple reps where Penei Sewell just gets straight up worked by Micah Parsons, which is going to happen one-on-one against Micah Parsons. I don't care who you are. But Goff has really shown throughout his career that he goes as the offensive line goes in many cases. And we saw that in this Packers game. Ugly interception under pressure, the inability to, kind of improvise and find answers when they're dealing with a bad pass rush, that can derail this entire Lions offense. And it clearly impacted their run game as well, not having Frank Ragnow moving people up front, Kevin Zeitler. So if this offense is going to be a lot more human, is this going to be a defense that can really elevate this team into superstardom and Super Bowl contention? I think it's very fair to question if that's going to be the upside of this Lions team this year. I'm still going to keep them in the Super Bowl contenders tier. I think they've earned that over the last couple of years, but certainly not a promising start for the Lions. And if we see more of the same from them in upcoming weeks, they're going to have to drop out into more of the mid-ranking tiers. And already I have them at the bottom here because one of those couple teams that really impressed me that has led to a lot of these teams dropping is the Washington Commanders. No sophomore slump, at least in week 1 for Jaden Daniels, and that was against a really impressive Giants pass rush and defense overall. And I think, too, like seeing Deebo Samuel produce makes me feel better about Washington. I was really skeptical of like what kind of shape he was going to be in, how he is able to hold up physically. Obviously, it's just week 1. We need to see if he can continue that through the season. But 7 catches, 77 yards, just having another kind of extra impact in there for the offense. And then, hey, man, I know Brian Daboll and this Giants offense hasn't earned a lot of benefit of the doubt, but what a job by the Commanders defense holding the Giants to 6 points. Javon Kinlaw played well. The Will Harris signing, he looked great on the back end at safety. Johnny Newton had a good game. Like, they hit a lot of those green lights we are looking for this team to hit. Feels like a continuation of the fact that, look, this is just a really good coach team on both sides of the ball. They have an amazing quarterback that might just be an elite tier 1 guy. Myself and many others pegged this team as a potential regression candidate, and they came out week 1 and said, watch this. And we get to see them go up against Green Bay here in just a couple days, which is going to be a ton of fun. Then at number 7, the Kansas City Chiefs. Feeling pretty good about having them ranked 5th coming into the year, basically saying, yeah, this team's a Super Bowl contender, but look, they won a lot of close games last year. There's some questions with this roster. They've got to get better in some areas if they want to expect to get back to that, Super Bowl at the end of the year. And they are going to have to go back to the drawing board and improve in some areas here. I mean, the biggest thing for me with the Chiefs is where the hell was the pass rush? Chris Jones was unspectacular in that game against the Chargers, and we're seeing, like, when Chris Jones isn't playing like a defensive player of the year any given week, who the hell else is getting after the quarterback here? I like George Karlaftis, but he's not quite that dude. They lost Tershawn Wharton, and Omar Norman-Lott is hurt right now. Hopefully they can get him back, but, continuing to trot out Mike Dana as your number 2 edge rusher, like, that just isn't acceptable for a Super Bowl hopeful team like this. The dude had 0 pressures on 27 pass rush snaps going against mostly Joe Alt. Like, Joe Alt's a great player, but you got to at least get one, impact the quarterback once in a full game's worth of snaps. Like, come on now. Also a rough game for that Chiefs secondary that on paper it is shaky outside of Trent McDuffie. So the defense has me concerned right now. And then, offensively, I'm less concerned, but obviously losing Xavier Worthy is not ideal when you already have Rashee Rice suspended, and they just continue to I just wish they had a more consistent, dynamic running back. They just are never the amazing running team that I think they're capable of. And then, they're obviously going to have to sort through these playmakers. I do think Hollywood Brown's going to step up in a big way here this season, but I wouldn't want to play the Chiefs right now, but at the same time, they are very beatable, I think. So they get a -2, but then I have the team that beat the Chiefs, the Chargers. Maybe not a more impressive week for a team. Going to Brazil and getting this huge week 1 win over the Chiefs. Like, beating this team in the first game of the season in the way that they did, which was really convincing fashion, frankly. Felt like they were in control of this game from start to finish. But to kind of get that monkey off your back, and then to also see, like, in a week 1 performance for Justin Herbert to start the year the way that he did and just announce, like, hey, this can be the year that I play like an MVP quarterback, that, like, you can put the offense on my shoulders. And when the Chiefs think, oh, we're, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, and we're trying to run this game out in a traditional way. No, like, put the ball in my hands. I'll make the throw. I'll make the scramble on a 3rd and 10. How many teams would have just run the RB draw or the screen in that situation? No, they go drop back pass, and Herbert uses his legs to pick up the first down. How much over the years have I been begging for Herbert to use his legs more? I have never seen him look for 4 straight quarters more comfortable navigating pressure, running when he needs to, hanging in the pocket when he needs to. unbelievable performance from Justin Herbert. If that is who he is absolutely a tier 1 elite MVP caliber quarterback that this team can win double-digit games with, and yes, go toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. They've got the coaching to do it, and if Herbert's playing like that, they have the quarterback to do it, as we saw. And by the way, those Chargers receivers look pretty damn good. Ladd McConkey is uncoverable. Quentin Johnston has hands now, and Keenan Allen just plugged right back into this offense as like the perfect piece to plug in there. So, and that's before even mentioning some of these other young pieces to maybe get excited about as pass catchers, from Trey Harris to Keandre Lambert-Smith. Maybe we see Rondé Gadsden one of these days. But new look Chargers team from last year. They're going to have to win in different ways, I think. Offensive line's not going to be as good. I don't think they can expect the defense to play as well as they did last year, though I continue to be impressed by what Jesse Minter did there. But if the passing game and Justin Herbert is able to look like they did, might just be an even better version of last year's Chargers. So very impressed there. And then the LA Rams at number 5. I just love this team, dude. Like, I don't have enough to say about Don Shula and this defense and that defensive line. They're just a bunch of fucking banshees, man. Like, they have such great chemistry on that D-line with Shula teeing up these twists and stunts. Like, what a just exhausting day at the office for an offensive line to go against all these guys and the energy and athleticism that they play with, on top of, like, yeah, you have a literal missile launcher, flying into you every play with Jared Verse. It's just insane. They've got like 6 or 7 of these guys. Byron Young looked like way better than he's ever looked to me, winning one-on-one reps too. Like, they look great. And then this offense's ability to problem solve now, with the backlog of experience now between Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, and Davante Adams, along with, Puka becoming more of a veteran at this point too, but especially those first 3, like, I thought the Texans had an excellent game plan. They forced a bunch of difficult throws upon Matthew Stafford and these guys, and they just kept making plays. Stafford kept making the throws. McVay found some answers schematically, especially that, game winner with the play action boot to seal the deal. But like Davante Adams making plays, whether it's beating Derek Stingley on an out route to move the chains on a 3rd down, back shoulder completion on a second read throw. There's a play where Stafford leaves it kind of low and in between zone defenders, and Davante Adams' ability to pluck that ball and then roll under it to secure the catch for a 3rd down. It's like, I just think of problem solving for this offense. It's, even if they're not consistently dynamic and going to kill you as this explosive offense, at least when they have to go against great defenses like the Texans, they have enough answers to do just enough, and then the defense is going to make plays, as we saw this week. And everything I just said is kind of underselling Puka and how good he was in this game too. So, like, I really like the Rams this year. I know they weren't necessarily the sexy pick heading into the year, but I absolutely see a Super Bowl contender that I would not want to have to face right now, as long as Matthew Stafford is healthy. But then I have the Green Bay Packers at number 4. And I debated whether or not to include them in our very top tier here. I still want to see more. Let's see if they can look similarly terrifying as they did defensively here in a couple days against Washington. The offense, like, man, as like generally good as the offense is, like any sort of offensive DVOA or EPA, like you're usually going to find the Packers and this offense inside the top 10. They do feel like a team that, like, they're so often just a tale of two halves, whether it's a slow start and a good finish or vice versa. Same deal here against Detroit. Still super encouraged by the way they came out and took control of this game early. And then it does kind of feel like, in this game at least, they probably just pulled off a little bit, some predictable runs. Jordan Love obviously had that one drive where he kind of melted down in what was otherwise a very good game for him. But it's pretty hard not to see that Packers team against Detroit there and say, wow, they're going to be really tough to beat. And for me, it's more about the defense, honestly, which is pretty exciting considering everything they have to work with offensively right now. But not just the Micah Parsons factor, but the way he opened things up for some other guys. And you're also, I think, seeing the Lucas Van Ness breakout that you were kind of hanging onto as your big hope for that defense before they got Micah Parsons. Lucas Van Ness looked amazing in this game against Detroit. So if he's breaking through as the number 12, number 13 overall pick that he was just a couple of years ago with freaky athletic levers, you're opening up Rashawn Gary as a number 2 pass rusher. Obviously, Micah Parsons, Devontae Wyatt, along with some other underrated interior defensive players. And the last thing I'll say is the main question on the Packers' overall team after they traded away Kenny Clark for Parsons was going to be run defense. And they slowed down what we have seen as one of the best rushing offenses in the entire league in the Detroit Lions, in large part because of the way they slant and scheme these guys up front. Just as we've seen undersized defensive lines work with teams like San Francisco and the Houston Texans inside this similar, solid DeMeco Ryans-esque scheme run by Jeff Hafley, those types of principles work with this athletic Packers defensive line, and then having the linebackers to clean things up behind that. Edgerrin Cooper looks incredible. Year 4, Quay Walker feels like it's finally time for him to be the good player that they drafted him to be, just as linebacker development tends to go. It takes a few years to get there, but man, there's a lot to like with this Packers team. Very close for me to putting them in the top tier here, but not quite there yet. Want to see a little bit more. But let's talk about our top 3 teams in my top tier, the Super Bowl frontrunners tier. And I do still have the Buffalo Bills number 3 here. They do climb up a spot there over Detroit. Obviously, Bills fans aren't going to like this with the Ravens ranking ahead of them. I'm just going to say it. And this can be either the beauty of my power rankings or the worst thing about my power rankings, depending on your opinion on this process. But those that have seen this series over the years know that I'm not here to just regurgitate standings. I'm genuinely trying to tell you who I think the best teams are heading into the next week of football and essentially who would beat who on a neutral field this week. Did I watch Sunday Night Football and think that the Bills were a better team than the Baltimore Ravens? No. I saw the Ravens look like the better team for 55 minutes as a team that I did think heading into the game was a slightly better team. And I saw them uncharacteristically, Derrick Henry fumbles the football away at the absolute worst of time when that game was all but over, and then just melt down defensively at the end. You're splitting hairs here. Like, we are inside the top tier. These two teams are neck and neck. But if they played that game again in a neutral field, which is what these power rankings are all about, I would still give the nod to the Ravens. But that's not to take away from what the Bills accomplished. Like, incredible team win. The offense with Josh Allen and these guys, like, just ridiculous. Like, the efficiency that they have reached with this offense, the chemistry, the cohesion. A year 2 breakout from Keon Coleman was like everything you could have hoped for this offense to take that last leap. Yeah, absolutely. It's all there for the Bills. I'm not here to be negative. I just know Bills fans are not going to like that I still have the Ravens ahead of them. But another reason for it too is I still cannot trust Sean McDermott's defense right now. But as long as they can clean up a few things there as the season goes on here, they are absolutely like just as much Super Bowl front runners. Like right now, I think the Super Bowl odds like are our top 3 teams are all like plus 700. That feels right to me. Any 3 of these teams, any given Sunday, just like we saw on this given Sunday, can beat the best teams in football and win a Super Bowl. Just comes down to a fumble here, a penalty there. Like, that's how tight I view these top 3 teams, whichever order you want to put them in. But I do have the Ravens number 2. Very much like a mirror image of the Bills in the sense of like the chemistry that Lamar Jackson has reached within this Todd Monken offense. Both these teams have offensive coordinators that might get head coaching jobs after this year, but they're there now. But like Zay Flowers was incredible in this game. Lamar was obviously incredible. Continuation of his season last year. It's just like, I know we're spending a lot of time on Bills versus Ravens, but I think it's a fascinating narrative here. I do just look at the Ravens defense, and I think generally speaking, they played better than the Bills until a very late game collapse. They didn't play amazing. I still have some questions there. Jair Alexander, not the guy I thought he was signing with this Ravens team. He looks like a very diminished version of his old self. But I do look at the Ravens defense, and I see a lot more star talent that I trust moving forward than I do with the Bills. Kyle Hamilton was amazing in this game. They've got Roquan, Marlon Humphrey. So that might be the one thing that decides the little difference in terms of how much do I trust the Ravens defense over the Bills. But again, splitting hairs there, not worried about the Ravens other than like John Harbaugh. Like, why do we keep blowing these games? This has become the unfortunate identity of the Baltimore Ravens, is just they can collapse against anybody at any given moment. It is wild. It is the lone Achilles heel, I think, of this Ravens team. But then I do have the Eagles at number 1. But hey, the Eagles did not look like the best team in football on week 1. I will say that. But they did have their best defensive player get ejected for senselessly spitting on Dak Prescott to start the game. That threw off everything defensively. I still have pretty damn high hopes for this defense moving forward, getting Jalen Carter back. And then offensively, they're obviously very good. But A.J. Brown didn't look healthy to me. Like, he's obviously a huge X factor for their passing game being, something you're afraid of. Hurts was obviously efficient. I love the way he used his legs when he needed to edge the Cowboys out for a close game victory. But I do think it's going to be harder for them to win every week with Hurts throwing for 150 yards. I think A.J. Brown looking healthy is something to monitor this season at least. But obviously, like, this is our number 1 team. Pretty much anytime you talk about the Eagles, you're trying to find weak links in the armor and ways to beat this team. So the narrative is just going to be different given the expectations of this team and how we discuss them as this hopeful back-to-back Super Bowl contender. But that's going to do it for the power rankings this week. You guys, I think I'm going to give myself a break on the podcast this week. I'm battling through a virus that I think my body was telling to buzz off as I looked to finish the deep dives last week. And it has really hit me. I have really had a hard time keeping my eyes open the last couple of weeks. I pounded an energy drink to get through these power rankings. And we went a little bit longer with the week 1 power rankings, reacting to stuff. So I do apologize. Not going to have a full week 1 reactions show, especially because by the time I was going to be able to get it done, we were going to be looking at the beginning of week 2 anyway. So I will be back with the Fully Inflated Football Podcast episodes next week. I do promise that. Make sure all of you that aren't following the Fully Inflated Football Podcast, make sure you're subscribed to that wherever you get your audio feeds. And I'm still debating whether to post those episodes here on the main channel or over on the podcast Fully Inflated channel. Would welcome any of your feedback for those of you that want to voice it here. I think, however, while we're kind of doing channel announcements here, I'm cautious to announce this, but I think we're good to go on it, doing a Friday weekly preview show with Garrett of Football Analysis and his YouTube channel, kind of doing a joint live stream weekly preview show on Friday afternoons. Stay posted on Twitter for an official announcement there, but I think that's the plan, and hopefully I don't regret announcing that here and letting you guys down. But I'm pretty sure that's happening, so that will probably be the next time I see you guys, is for that live stream. But anyway, that's enough chatter. Let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.